like understanding prompts, comedy, making people feel relaxed in front of the camera.
To give people compliments and make people happy before you do
Yeah.
the photos, which is something that I do a lot of.
They are actually really good prices.
I wanted to almost build a brand for myself, which I think is the big thing, is you
Yeah.
need to become known for that's the guy or that's the woman or
Yeah.
that's the photographer who does this or does that.
But, and this is probably be controversial, especially if my bosses are going to listen. Hey, I'm Tom Wilkins Photography. Do you want a photo?
Doesn't quite work the same when you do it.
No, it doesn't, does it? Doesn't have the same pizzazz. Cool. So we're doing the Q&A.
Yeah.
Have you got the Q&A questions in your mind?
Yeah.
Or shall I just grab my phone? Amazing. Are you
Really.
recording? You're
Yeah.
recording. Cool. Has it got? It's gone to my phone. Okay. You ready to just start?
Yeah.
Okay. Let's wait for the wind to go down a little bit. Hello and welcome to Camera Central Podcast. Today I'm actually left my podcast setup back in the office, so we're using DJI mics, but we're here again in Butte Park.
Butte Park, not Rove Park.
Because I said Rove Park last time. We're here again in Butte Park, and today we're going to be going over some of the questions that you've asked Tom when he put up his social media posts. So let's go ahead with it.
Yeah.
Do you want to be the one to ask the question?
Yeah. So one of the questions we had was how what's the best way of dealing with low light with when you get your grain and when you got your high ISO? What's the best way of dealing with that?
So we've done a video on the exposure triangle before, and it helps you to kind of like deal and understand with the light that you have in the area in which you're shooting. When it comes to low light shooting, you tend to need to push up your ISO, which with certain cameras, for example, the one we're shooting on at the moment, wouldn't fare as well in low light as your camera, because your camera is full frame. The reason for that is because it's got a much larger sensor and thus a better kind of like pixel ratio and size of those pixels to cut down that noise as much as possible. It's why some cameras like the A7S III are so good in low light, is because they're only 12 megapixels and it's a full frame sensor. So the pixel size in that camera is actually a lot larger than a lot of other cameras on the market. Now, with that, if you're looking to show a lot in low light, then looking at a full frame camera is usually the best option. However, there are other ways around this, and the main one really being here is aperture. And then adding lights into there afterwards if you can't do it. So aperture is what, if you have a look at your eye expands and contracts depending on what lighting situations it's in. So that's the same with your lens. Usually in low light situations, I would actually be using something called a prime, which is a prime lens. And that is what you shoot with day in, day out. And that's a 50mm f1.8. Now, at the moment, Canon have actually released a really interesting lens, which is the 45mm f1.2, which gives you a lot more stops in terms of like light potential when you're in those low light situations. If you're an APS-C shooter, there is a lot of low aperture lenses on the market to help you deal with that low aperture and get the low aperture as and when you need to. So the best way to really combat lighting situations is really with a lens that will be able to do that. The next thing, of course, is actually using a flash or a light that you take in your bag to be able to light your portraits, light your subjects, just that little bit easier. And you can get small LED panels. I gave you a Rotolight the other day, and you know, these things will help you get better shots in low light situations. And it's something else that you can carry in your bag to help you do that. But usually I would say have a look at a prime first, because optics are the most important part of your bags when it comes to how you shoot.
Amazing.
I need to put my face up to my phone, because otherwise you're looking at my missus. There you go.
Let me just quickly, which one? I'm trying to work out the right order to do them. Should I just do them in order?
Just do them in order, that's fine. So it doesn't lock again. Just make sure you just keep your phone there and you just move it up and down again.
So one of the questions I've had repeatedly over many months, and it's the same question I keep getting from a lot of people that are shooting automatic, and they want to move to manual, and they're just asking me constantly, how did I switch to manual and what is the best way to learn it? So obviously you'll have an answer, and I'll probably have a very different answer, but it might be worth.
As I mentioned a minute ago, it comes down to that exposure triangle and your understanding of it on the base kind of like thing. You don't necessarily need to fully understand it, just understand the effects that those individual settings give you. So that's ISO, aperture, and shutter speed. Now, what was I going? Manual, that's it. So shooting manual is something you should always end up learning to do. And best way I found in the past to learn this and learn composition, patience with photography, is actually using a film camera to kind of really limit yourself so you understand. Now, the first thing you need to understand is the meter inside of your camera. And on the grand scheme of things, you don't necessarily need to know too much about shutter speed, ISO, and aperture to be able to understand what the meter is telling you. Essentially, what you have is a line with about 10 to 20 dots in it, and there will be a point which moves backwards and forwards. The center of that is where you need to expose perfectly according to what the camera sees. Now, it's not necessarily something you super need to learn if you have a mirrorless camera or a camera that can actually show you what the photo looks like in live view. When it comes to live view or using your EVF, especially with mirrorless cameras, you can literally just look at what you are seeing, change the ISO, shutter speed, or aperture to kind of gauge the best position to be in like your shooting situation. And again, understanding ISO, shutter speed, and aperture will actually help you craft different kind of shots. And yeah, super fun. Gotta love scooters.
Yeah, I think when I taught myself, I actually went onto automatic, kind of looked at what the camera was telling
Yeah,
me, and then I switched to manual, kind of replicated that,
yeah,
and then started moving the bits
yeah,
around. And I very quickly realized that if I put aperture down twice, then you can do one of the other
for sure.
dials. You do twice as well, and it'll bring
Yeah,
you back to roughly the same point.
yeah,
And
exactly.
that was how I started to learn it. And then I realized that it's all linked, and as long as you can you don't even really need to look at the camera. As long as you can remember clicks and number of
Yeah.
clicks, you can do it all without looking then. And
Another really useful tip, especially when you're shooting out and about during the day, is find the exposure that you want to be on and look in shadow situations because that's where the light is most even, and set your camera to that in manual. 9 times out of 10, you're going to get the right exposure, and especially if you shoot raw as well, because you can bring and adapt that photo to best suit the situation in which you're taking photographs in.
and then letting a secret out of the bag. I can do manual now. I can do it. I do it at all
Yep.
my events. When I'm out on the streets taking pictures of strangers, aperture priority.
Yep. Aperture
It's just
priority is what you
easy.
want. Yeah.
It's easy.
Good, like, and ultimately that's it. Don't be afraid to go to the automatic settings. Ultimately, what really matters is your eye and how you see it. And when it comes to the automatic settings, you can actually adapt the meter in the camera, and we're coming back to that line there, and you can set to the exposure point in which the automatic settings inside of the camera will best adjust to that situation. If you want to go underexposed to get sort of a moodier looking photo, just set it down. And if you want to go high key, which is like a lot of lights, overexposed, then you go the other way.
Yeah. 2025, is it still okay to buy a DSLR or should you be going mirrorless?
This is something that is going to come really down to your budget, and that's something we've recently just done a podcast on. Tom actually switching to mirrorless, and he comes from a full frame DSLR. Now, when it comes to full frame DSLRs, and if you want to jump to a more professional orientated camera, they are actually really good prices, and they still produce great image quality. So if you're photography first, save yourself some money, look at some used cameras, especially mirrorless DSLRs. Now, mirrorless cameras do offer you a lot of benefits and actually helping you expose, understand photography a little bit easier. But sometimes it's better to give yourself limitations when starting off. So having a look at a DSLR and then maybe going to mirrorless later on is actually a very viable opportunity for yourself and something that you could do and, learn and adapt to that situation quite easily.
Especially if you're starting out as well. There's always that worry you could start something and you might not enjoy
Yeah,
it as much as you thought you would. Or so
yeah,
I think there's always that time frame there to kind of not
exactly.
throw all your money in the pot as such to go straight for mirrorless. And
And if you ever need help deciding what you want to go for, we've got a load of really experienced photographers and videographers over at Camera Centre that will be glad to help you through both looking at both used and new cameras. And we very much care about what you want in general. So make sure you go to Camera Centre UK if you are looking for a camera.
Amazing. So one of the questions I get a lot, which is more kind of probably specifically at
Yeah,
me, is how I build courage with approaching people in the
yeah,
street. I mean, you've done bits of it as well because
yeah. I
you've
think I
been out
can
with
touch
me
on
and done
that to a
bits.
certain extent.
Yeah,
And for my side of it is I've been doing this for like 18 years now, right? And I still have, when it comes to doing street photography, that kind of approach to people, I find a little bit nervous even till today. Now, what I would say is this guy is truly the master at it. He has got to the point where he can approach people, they feel comfortable and at ease. And that's one of the most important things when it comes to creating content and photographs of people, is making them feel comfortable and at ease whilst you're doing so. And which I'll pass over to Tom here.
yeah. So I think the big thing is that you need to value your work, and if you value your work, you don't approach someone with the mindset of like, oh no, I've got to try and ask this person to give me something. You're giving them something. You're giving them a really good photo of themselves. You're giving
Yeah,
them some art that you've created of them. And I think when you kind of start thinking of it along that lines, and especially if you want to go down the route where you're trying to give people compliments and make people happy before you do
yeah,
the photos, which is something that I do a lot of. It's not you're not bothering someone, and
yeah,
that's the way I really look at it. Is it's
exactly.
it's not bothering someone.
Um,
It's
yeah,
it's creating a moment that they'll probably remember for a
yeah,
while, and they'll be chatting about it. Oh, this
yeah.
guy thought I was cool,
Exactly.
and yeah, it
And
makes it so
again and
much
again
easier.
and again and again, I see people talking to Tom all the time about, they've seen him on social media and stuff like that. But I think it really does come down to the approach and how he actually helps move those people into those situations. Now, when me and Tom first started like doing a few bits and pieces together, one of the things that I think was quite funny between us is I started trying to pose them and, getting them in these particular situations. And then you decided to let them be just
Yeah,
them.
no, yeah,
And I think to be honest, there is a really good mid ground there, and you need to really look into who you're taking photographs of and make sure that they are going to be comfortable in
yeah,
that situation. Sometimes it's better to pose them. Usually, that's best spent on when you get a model, someone that's more used to it. But I honestly
also
think the way
some
you do it is actually quite inspirational and nice.
I have had some people who are the opposite of a model. They're really nervous, and I will
Yeah,
give them kind of some suggestions for a pose. Then, as much as I try not to,
yeah,
sometimes you can see that the person really does want that
yeah,
kind of direction.
yeah,
And but yeah, no, where possible, I always say to people, I've stopped you because I think you're cool, so
yeah,
I don't need to involve myself with
yeah,
how you're looking in the picture.
yeah.
It's all however you feel comfortable is what's cool.
With me, what I've learned over the course of my career, and especially with the amount of weddings that I've done in the past, is like understanding prompts, comedy, making people feel relaxed in front of the camera ends up netting you better shots overall. So look at ways to keep them calm, make them smile, make them joke. There are a lot of things you can learn from doing wedding photography in particular that really applies into every kind of situation. And yeah,
I do that quite a bit actually. If there's someone that I'm shooting for a second time, because I do get a lot of
yeah,
people that I shoot for a second time, or someone that's like been like, oh, I know you, and they're like
yeah,
really excited about it. I will come out there with the right, pull me a crazy pose, and
yeah,
generally they'll be like down like, ah,
yeah.
and it turns it into like such a
It's
different
then
picture.
their
Yeah,
option to do it because
yeah,
like most people have done stupid poses
yeah,
in the mirror
yeah,
before, and they want to try out something new. You can do that with
yeah,
them, and it's all about how you approach and talk to people and what you get out of them.
yeah,
Yeah, I think that was
yeah.
pretty good.
So this one, I don't think there is going to be an answer to, but
Mhm.
I've been asked, what is the best camera and lens for a beginner?
What is the best camera and lens for beginner? When it does come down to it, it is whatever budget you have. However, and this is probably be controversial, especially if my bosses are going to listen, start off with your phone. Understand and start enjoying photography. And then understand that shooting photography via your phone can be very distracting. And once you jump into using an actual camera, you're going to start enjoying that process a little bit more. In which you can look at getting yourself a compact, or like I said, look at a used camera, something DSLR orientated, a great way to start. Perhaps you want to go a little bit more old school, in which film photography is a lot of fun. And
It's making a comeback as
although
well.
it's making a comeback, and it has made a comeback
Well, yeah,
several times
yeah.
now, but the real great thing about that is it's not too expensive to get into it straight away. It's expensive to do it for a long period of time, but I think you value the shots a little bit more because it's that more kinetic feel that you have towards what you're taking. You can feel it, you can see it, it's actually happened. With DSLRs, they are great, and again, you get that same experience, but it's all about where you are and where you're going to be learning and what you want to take photos of. Usually it's best to start with a camera, a kit lens, a beginner orientated one, and look to build out and build kind of what you want to take photos of first. Now, you can end up coming to an understanding of what you want to take photos with just simply taking photos on your phone. Say you start liking doing shots of planes, sports, then a DSLR or a camera is going to suit you much better. And you know that you want to get a longer telephoto because that's what you want to have a look at. When it comes to shooting people, you want to get portraits, then a prime 50mm would be great. Low light photography, and you're going to struggle that with your phone, then look at getting yourself something full frame orientated at a prime at a low aperture. Or you're looking to take photos of pretty much everything, then get yourself a decent mid-range zoom, maybe a low aperture, maybe something like a 24-105 and a DSLR to start off with, or maybe even jump into a bigger, more powerful mirrorless system. It really does come down to personal preference and taste, and make sure you go into the shop at any point and the boys there will be happy to help you out and, you know, help you get to the point where you want to be with what you want to get, essentially.
I think it also comes down to artistic as well, not just what you want to shoot,
Yeah,
but how you want to shoot it. So I've seen there's so many photographers around. You know, there's ones that are using the disposable cameras, and
yeah,
that is literally what they're
yeah,
using for their whole art.
yeah,
And it's, you know, some of the shots they get. I went out the other day. My son, he's 4. He's got one of those little like plastic toy
yeah,
ones that have a few games on, and then like a
yeah,
camera, and it's probably like 2 megapixel or something. Like it's.
exactly, yeah.
I went out. I got some great shots.
Oh,
I was
definitely.
really impressed.
Well,
Like.
we recently just had Dinosaur. I don't know if any of you have watched him come into the shop. And he was really interested in the sort of like more gimmicky orientated cameras. And you realize that cameras are really a personal preference, depending on what you want to get. And what you want to do with it is the most important part. We do everything from digital compact cameras to full frame mirrorless, everything else in between. So, you know, if you have any questions, then by all means, pop into the shop and they'll look to answer them.
So the next one, which is one that I actually can't really answer, so this one is going to be on
Okay.
you, was whether we've got any tips for photography students in university with kind of, I'm guessing with kind of how they
Yeah.
progress and how they progress beyond being a student. And I've, so to put some background information on that, I've never had any training with photography. I've picked up a camera, I've
Yeah.
taught myself. Firby has done videography and
Well, I've
all of
been
this
through
stuff in
university
university.
as well,
Yeah.
yeah.
So yeah.
So there's a lot to really learn, and this is something that does actually apply to you and yourself as well. Is sometimes you've got to do things for free, or at least have a project that you can mastermind and, you know, guide in the best way possible. When it comes to consistency and what you want to produce, that's really the end goal of what needs to be done. In university, I actually started doing music videos for buskers, and that was my, you know, project that I looked to apply to pretty much every part of the course in which I was doing. And it worked out pretty well. It allowed me to get contacts in an industry that I didn't have any with, and even had that stuff shown on TV at the time. So when it comes to just starting out doing things, it's great being paid, and you might be at that stage. However, not everyone is. Sometimes doing a project, doing something for free will give you the point where you can go on further. Don't forget, it's about building something for yourself. And at the end of the day, you can only do that by trying and doing it as much as possible to be able to do it. And this is something Tom has done and has proven to work for him in
Yeah.
his situation,
It's what I was
and
about to
something
say.
you could do as well.
Yeah, I'm guessing regardless of whether you're a student or not, you know, I first picked up a camera in April,
Yeah,
and you know, I very quickly found my niche and found what I wanted to be consistent with and where I wanted to almost build a brand for myself, which I think is the big thing. Is you
yeah,
need to become known for that's the guy or that's the woman or
yeah,
that's the photographer who does this or does that.
exactly.
You know, so yeah, I mean, I get bookings for paid shoots most weeks now,
Yeah,
which I think if it wasn't for
yeah,
building up, you know, the image that I've put out
yeah,
there through all the free stuff I do with the
yeah,
stranger portraits, that
exactly.
wouldn't be a possibility.
You know, it's all about building something. Every now and then you'll come across an opportunity which you need to invest your time in order to see something come back. Now, some cases I've done things for free and it's never given something back to me, but it's given me knowledge, understanding on how to do things, and ultimately I ended up becoming better at my craft because of it.
Yeah.
For example, I used to do weekly radio shows with this guy called Big Sky, but I used to produce these for him weekly. What it allowed me to do is talk to more established brands, more established bands, and actually get more work that way, and some contacts that I've had almost lifelong at this stage. So don't forget, talking to people. Well, that's another one, talking to people. and networking. That's a big one. That's how you end up doing stuff.
Like me coming here and doing this podcast with Firby for free.
He's sucking up to me all the time, and I give him
every
free
time I'm in town. He's like, right, you in town today?
Yeah, you're in town. I'm going to distract you from what you should be doing today, and having a talk in a park. Gotta love having a talk in the park, though.
I mean, could be a worse place to be, though. Eh?
Could be a worse place to be, exactly. But yeah, I believe that's all the questions, then, is it?
Yeah, that was all the questions.
If you have any more questions, put them in down below. Of course, we'll do this every now and then. So this is just a Q&A where we can ask questions to us, to each other, and find out, a little bit more about,
Feel free to continue asking them on Instagram as well. I answer them as and when I can in the message. I get a lot of messages, so I can't always answer all of them, but I do generally try and pick them out to answer on the podcast as well. So.
And we'll look to do this like once a month, maybe, if you have any questions, and especially when it comes to the community that we're looking to build here in Cardiff and, hopefully around the UK, which will be in next week's podcast, hopefully. But also, if you want to, do some beta testing with us, we're actually building a platform for creators in Cardiff where we can look to maybe even get brand support, because if coming from Camera Centre, I can do that, and look to do workshops, creative shoots, a few other little bits and pieces. It's going to be interesting to see how it grows in the future, and set up meetups and
forums
have
live
a drink,
now,
so
coffee. People can.
Forum is live now anyway, so that's the first stage of the site. So
clickheads.net.
Clickheads.net. The link will be in down below. Yeah. And next week we're going to be speaking with Steve Deacon.
Speaking with Steve.
Steve Deacon, who is helping us with a lot of the programming and kind of like building out this community, which will be a bit of an interesting one.
On that note as well, if you want to jump onto clickheads.net and upload some of your photos, there's places to do that on the forum. Exactly. We'll have a look at showcasing some of it.
And we'll look to do a showcase in the podcast at some point. So yeah, perfect. Yeah. Freaking Siri, that was creepy, wasn't it? I hate it when that happens. Amazing. Anyway, if you like this video, please like, follow, and subscribe. If you want to see more, follow us both on socials. I am Firby DOP, as I have on my hat, because I'm a knob. And then
Tom Wilkins Photography.
And he's just a beautiful person, isn't he? So I'll see you next time. Cool.